Welcome to Capes and Tights. We're here for another podcast episode. I'm Justin. That's over there is Adam. We're remote again because that's what we do this podcast now, which is good.
Oh, yeah. It'd be a long commute if we didn't.
I thought of it. What was it? Something about, I mentioned something to my wife about it the other day about like, oh, we could just have Adam, fly out here for whatever it was and do something. And she's like, yeah, no.
We could do it just like 4 times a month.
Yes. Well, when we get the budget. I had a little dream, not dream, but like a daydream thing, Adam, the other day. Did you see, you were in the beer industry like I am, or we're in the beer industry like I am now. I know a lot about stuff. Did you see Stone Brewing Company was sold? Stone Brewing Company was sold to Sapporo.
Did not.
Who owns, there's like the Japanese conglomerate.
They're huge.
They own Anchor Steam now as well. Yeah. They bought them in 2017. They bought it for $165 million. Okay, pretty good chunk of money for a craft beer, but they're also one of the largest craft beer companies in the country, Stone Brewing. But I thought about it in my head. I am not an owner of the current brewery that I work for, but in my mind, I was thinking if we were to sell for $165 million, I've been with the company from nearly the beginning. I'm high up in the company. There's a good chance I get a sort of a bonus at that time. And I was trying to think in my mind that if I got say I get $1 million bonus because they sold it for $165 million. There would be times where I think you'd fly out. I'd pay for you to fly out here, right? I'd fly out there. We'd do this back and forth thing. We'd have a studio in upstate New York in between the two of us. Yes. And we'd all just go there. And that's where our studio
We'd be racking up air miles, man. Like,
we'd be flying out to like Texas to do like California to go to the premieres, right? We wouldn't actually, we'd be on the premieres. We'd have a hotel room. We'd record in the hotel room and we'd be all set, right?
We'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, our friends from work over there was at the premiere of Thor. They actually got invited to the world premiere out in LA. And I was like, wow, they're going excellent. Places.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with sitting here in my apartment, watching these things on screen that's 65 inches, like I did with Obi-Wan Kenobi, the TV show on Disney Plus right now, which Adam, you and I love talking Star Wars, man, don't we?
Oh yeah. And that was a good show.
So May 27th, the premiere just wrapped up June 22nd. It was directed by Deborah Chow, who did a couple episodes of The Mandalorian and a couple episodes of Fear the Walking Dead. And amongst other things, those are the things that are in our kind of wheelhouse of Capes and Tights. Theme music was done by John Williams. The theme of it was amazing, which was unbelievable, but composed by Natalie Holt, who did the compositions for Loki as well. Yep. So a lot of cool music in that. Having John Williams back is just like, it's amazing. It's honestly amazing.
No, it's like John Williams is like clearly the composer that's going to be remembered from our generation. And I'm sure like everybody in classical music would be like, how dare you? But it's true.
Yes. And it sounds like what I've heard rumors are is Indiana Jones 5. Will he be his last score in the public thing? We'll see. But it sounds like it's honestly, I do think they're going to redeem themselves from Indiana Jones 4. And when they do redeem themselves, it would be a nice fitting send off for John Williams in the end. So
I agree.
We'll be talking that movie as we get closer to that in 2023, I think it is, or 24. I forget. But Obi-Wan Kenobi, man, it takes place 10 years after the Revenge of the Sith, which is pretty cool. Again, we've talked, let's do some new Star Wars stuff. However, I'm going to backtrack on that for a second here. Because when you can do Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi and do it this well, I'm okay with it.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, we'll get deep in, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I know that like we've talked about, this is like very specific for like people in our age group that were connected to the prequels and the originals. But man, it was like, I could tell that it was affecting me more than the people around me watching it. Like they loved it. They were like, that was so fun. But I was like, whoa.
Yes. Well, I mean, so I have I wrote my notes this time in a different way, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Grand Inquisitors, Princess Leia. I have Darth Vader. So I have like some special effects. I have this like section out thing on my notes this time. And one of the things I had was, it reminded me that Obi-Wan Kenobi was the reason I liked the prequels. Do you know what I mean? Like it reminded me of Ewan McGregor's acting of Obi-Wan was the best part of the episodes 1 through 3. Yep. Like that to me reminded me of this and showing how good of an actor Ewan McGregor is. And then showing how some of the practical effects and practical shooting, like we've mentioned before, is that they didn't use the big sound screen thing on this show like they did in Boba Fett and in Mandalorian and other things as well over at Disney and Star Wars. That it just showed me that's why I liked episodes 1, 2, and 3. It's because obviously not all of that, but like why I like the prequels was because of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that showed this in this series.
Yep. And this series also, like we always tell people about the animated series, man, this like really paid a lot of respect to that, which I think is huge for bringing in the younger crowd to the kind of the older Star Wars stuff.
Yes. And it brings in, honestly, it brings in the Clone Wars or the animated shows. It brings in, I say Clone Wars, but the Rebels. It brings in, and the comic books. Like it brings in some of that comic book lore that we have had seen recently. Like I follow comic books very closely, like actual reading issues of comic books. And I have this app called Key Collector Comics. I think you have it too.
Yep, I do too.
Give it a little shout out there. The number of times that a hot comic or a comic goes up in value recently because of in the Star Wars realm has been far more than it has in many years prior to this. So they're using characters that first appeared in comic book form or first appeared in the animated shows a lot more recently. And I think it shows that both the comic books and the animated shows should not be brushed aside. Like,
no,
I feel
not
like
at all.
People love these TV shows and these films, but there's something to be said about the animated shows and the comic books as well, which is pretty cool.
Well, and that's what we've said before, kind of with that extended universe that now is not canon, but like, that's what brought the fans in before we had all this Star Wars was the video games and the comic books and the novels. So again, we're that demographic that remembers that.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I mean, it all should fit together. That's what I always wanted when I was a kid.
Yes, exactly. And I said, in the connection to the prequels, like the idea that I almost see this too. Like we mentioned about Ewan McGregor, and the reason why I like the prequels is it also almost felt like a let's try to save the prequels in a way. Like this, technically, if you would have gapped out the prequels a little bit farther in space in time, this could have been the fourth movie in the prequels. Speaking of that, I love the episodes week to week thing because I'm just loving that again. So you can like anticipation and all that stuff. But do you think this could have been a movie?
Yes, I do think this could have been a movie. And
I think obviously it's 6 hours or not even that long because some of them, like one episode was only like 30 minutes or something like that. But like it's a lot longer. But if you cut out some unnecessary stuff out of the middle of this, you could have shortened this down to a 2.5 hour movie, and it would have been the saving grace of the tragic Solo movie that people didn't really like that much.
Or honestly, even, I mean, I know with people we've had it a million times, but it even could have been a trilogy of movies. I mean, because we had 6 1-hour episodes ish. If they'd have kept it to like 3 hour-and-a-half movies, it really could have been like basically the conclusion of the prequels.
I think that, and the reason I say that is because it's all about the bottom dollar. Obviously, Disney Plus is making Star Wars and Disney a bunch of money. But I was trying to think about how well this show was shot, how well the show was done, the connections to the prequels, the Darth Vader part of it, the Leia part of it, the Obi-Wan Kenobi part of it, and then the addition of the Grand Inquisitors could have made him $1 billion in the box office. Like, I'm just trying to think of like this movie could have been $1 billion movie, and I'm wondering after, like, there's obviously a reason why they don't do it. But after watching it, I realized that there was some things you probably could have cut to make it 1 hour or a 2.5 hour movie, or like you mentioned, maybe expand on a few things a little bit more and make it 3 1.5 2 hour movies and make it a trilogy again. I just don't know. I feel like this could have been, they went the wrong route with going with a prequel, a Solo movie, when they could have just done this as a solo movie.
I agree. And I do agree. I think one would probably be best, but I think that was part of it. Like it's hard to follow up like an epic 3 movie thing with a series, like no matter how you do it. Cause like even say we look at the Marvel side, they don't do these like these trilogies. You have to see all 3 of these together. So that's hard to follow up.
Well, I mean, like we've obviously reviewed Book of Boba Fett. We've reviewed Moon Knight, Hawkeye. These shows were definitely good shows. but I don't think they would have transitioned into a movie like this one would have. I think this one would have been something that could have been easily done as a movie and been good in the theaters. However, if you look at the opposite side of that, Adam, it shows how good shows are on Disney Plus. That this could have been a feature film, and they decided to make it a show and a series on Disney Plus for free, basically. Because you know me, I incorporate the monthly fee for Disney Plus as just a fee in my life that I'm going to pay forever. So it's free to me, and I didn't have to pay to go see the theater to see this Obi-Wan Kenobi show. So there's like I said, there's positives and negatives, and there's both sides of that. Like I would have loved to see it as a movie, but it's also very, very happy they made this quality of a product as a TV show.
The cinematography was amazing in this. Like you said, it was like, especially considering it was done with more practical effect. Like it was just, I thought it was some of the best shots ever in Star Wars.
And I wrote under the special effects and more section of this. Anybody who listens to our podcast or knows us personally, we have a love-hate relationship with the DC EU or the DC universe. This entire show was dark, but in a good way. I don't know how to explain to people that this is the darkness that I wanted and not the darkness from the DCEU. And part of that's probably because it takes place in space. Like there's things that happen in space and on dark moons and dark planets that the DCEU takes in place in Gotham and in Smallville and all those places.
We've joked before. It's like, well, no, this is in my real life right now. I mean, yes, I don't have Batman, but the crime and the unrest and the sense of dread about the future, that's all right here. I don't need it.
Think about the darkness of this was necessary because like the lightsaber battle in episode 6, like that lightsaber battle between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that the most of the whole lighting of their faces in the environment around them was from the lightsabers. Like that's a great shot, great, amazing finale. The idea that they darkened the entire set and it's literally just the lightsabers that are lighting their faces, which also fascinates me every time I watch that clip of a review of the thing, and he's like Obi-Wan's got a lightsaber up here and the blues on his face. I'm like, that's not even real lightsaber. That's special effects, and they special effect his lightsaber. Face. And it's like it's showing I feel like he's really holding a lightsaber. But
the lightsaber were cool in this one. It was like seeing because we never got to see Obi-Wan fight Darth Vader, of course, because he disappeared when they meet in the original movie. That was wild to see, and I just that shot you said, like with the lightsabers, the one especially where his mask is partially broken. Yes. And it's switching between all of the colors as the voices change. Like that was wild.
That, and I wrote under the Darth Vader part, which was the transitions between Hayden Christensen's voice and James Earl Jones's voice, the helmet being damaged. Like he'd say Adam and he goes to say Morrisette, but the Morrisette was James Earl Jones and Adam was freaking Hayden Christensen's voice. Like that shows to people the difference between the two. Like the fact that the cool thing also was that Hayden Christensen was in the Darth Vader suit the entire time. So anytime you saw Darth Vader, that was actually Hayden Christensen.
I love that.
Which is amazing. And because like he played his character, like he basically was Mandalorian. If you think about it, it was basically him without having to do voices. Like the whole entire section of this entire show, it was just Hayden Christensen in a suit and James Earl Jones speaking. So
which is like, I mean, what a brilliant way to be able to connect it to the prequels. And I mean, Hayden Christensen deserves to be Darth Vader. Like who else is going to be Darth Vader? I mean,
they could have gotten anybody, a cheaper person, honestly. They could have gotten some, but I like the fact that we know Hayden Christensen's mannerisms. Like if I were to, I use my hands a lot. So if I were to have Darth Vader's suit on and I am Darth Vader, you'd have to have my person do this a lot because that's who it is. And I think that's the perfect way. Why not have him if you're going to pay him to be in the show in the first place? But it was kind of funny. We barely even saw Hayden. Like it was barely any Hayden actually in this movie.
And that's something I actually put in my notes though, that I thought was really interesting. I'm sure you read it too. There was a little bit of blowback with the using, current Ewan and Hayden to do the lightsaber duel from the prequels when they're training. And I get it. But my thing is like, that's what I love about Disney though, is every choice should have been they're too old. Let's use the fake face and just make them look younger. But the fact that it was actually Hayden Christensen and Obi-Wan and Ewan McGregor acting out that scene, I felt like not much happened, but you saw absolutely how different direction affected their acting. Because it felt so much more natural than in the first movies. It was, I mean, it was funny, it was light, they had great dialogue. And I feel like that's the only reason that scene existed, is to show you that like we can do this.
We can do this, yeah.
Like, yeah.
And that says something about the idea of every episode being directed by Deborah Chow too. That's the other thing about I love about some of these. And Marvel's done that with some of their series, where every episode is directed by the same person, but written by different people or produced by different people. But like there's a director that does the whole series, which is different. Obviously, we know on a 24 episode season on regular network television, it's almost impossible for one director to direct every episode.
Exactly.
When you're doing 6 episodes and you're taking good chunk of time to make it, you can do that director as one person directing everything, which is huge. And her stamp was on it. I think that we'll see, if she does other things, you'll see this stamp of what happens here in Obi-Wan. And if you go back and watch her episodes of The Mandalorian, you probably see that stamp on that as well, like we saw with Taika Waititi on the Mandalorian episode. Like we've seen his work before, so you see it on The Mandalorian, like that's a Taika Waititi episode. I can tell that's a Taika Waititi episode. And I think Deborah Chow is going to have that. And I think she did a great job on this show for sure. And the introduction to new characters. So we talked a lot about so far already about the Obi-Wan, the Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader, the James Earl Jones coming back to voice Darth Vader was awesome as well.
Was excellent. Yeah.
And he probably was in like the studio for like 2 or 3 hours on one day and just did all the lines he needed.
All the lines. Yeah.
You got a check for a good amount of money and said,
and his voice is modulated on top of that. So if they need to, they can just kind of fix it.
Yes. They just grab words from other things he said and make a sentence. They're done. We're all set. But that's what they could have done. They could have actually done it all computer generated. They didn't even need him, and they did bring him back, which is huge to me. It's showing the homage to Star Wars fans of the olden days, and having him still do it was great too. But
like you said before, I mean, they didn't need John Williams either, right? I mean, at all. Somebody could emulate, Star Wars songs again.
Do you want to like just spoil it from the beginning right now? They also didn't need Liam Neeson, but they brought Liam Neeson back.
Well, of course. Yeah, we might as well say it because that's what everybody wait. Yeah, of course.
And he said he would never be on a television show, and he was all gaslighting us the entire time about how he wouldn't be on here, and he was on the last episode, which tells me he's got to be it. If they do a season 2, which is the rumor that they want to, he's got to be more in it. He's got to have that he's got to have that Force Ghost part of it.
And even if he does it sporadically as a Force Ghost, and maybe what he does is say, look, I'm okay with you doing like a computer generated Force Ghost thing, but like I'll voice it. I just saw a recent interview with him where he said that same thing. He's like, the TV shows. He was like, but I felt like I owed it to Ewan McGregor and George Lucas. And so that was, excellent. So good. We got that out of the way.
And I bet he got, again, a nice little check. Money talks. Hey, we'll give you X amount of dollars to show up for one day to do 1 2-hour thing. What do you say?
I bet it was more than you and I make in many years.
But yeah, so you talk about the idea we have Hayden coming back as Darth Vader. You have Obi-Wan or Ewan McGregor coming back as Obi-Wan. You have Liam Neeson coming back as obviously Qui-Gon Jinn, but also like obviously you have the Organa, whatever what's Leia's parents' name?
Bail Organa.
Yes, you have all that coming back as well. So you have a lot of those like, okay, let's take this prequels and bring that in to this show 10 years later, or 10 years later in the world of Star Wars. But Grand Inquisitors was a huge addition onto this as well, which is funny because was it the first episode or the second? It was the first episode where the Grand Inquisitor gets stabbed, right?
It's the first or the second, but it's right in the beginning.
So it's so funny because again, this Key Comic Collector website or app that's out there says Darth Vader #6, which is the first appearance of the Grand Inquisitor in comic book form. That value of that book went up to $150, $200 a book. It was all out there. So he's going to be in this show, all this stuff. And I'm watching the episode and he gets stabbed and he dies. I'm like, what the hell? It reminded me of a little bit. Was it The Other Guys where they commercials or the trailers always had like The Rock and Mark Wahlberg or something like that in the trailer. And like the first 30 seconds in the movie, they jump off of a building and die. And they're not in the movie for the rest of the movie. And you're just like, what just happened? But we all knew, especially if they were going to try to do canon at all, because the Rebel stuff, the Grand Inquisitor's in, that they couldn't actually kill him off. And he did survive. And he did show back up at part 5 or episode 5 of the show. So I'm glad that was there because I love the Grand Inquisitor. I think it's a great character to have in there. I think the special effects and the practical effects they did with his face and stuff, I think it was a great addition.
I think the Grand Inquisitor just was acted perfectly. That's why I was like you when he got stabbed. I was like, seriously, of course, I turned to Annie and I was like, he's coming back though.
It's got to be. You got to come back. There's no way they did that. They did the whole thing just to have him in an episode or so.
No.
But the Grand Inquisitor, what the funny thing is I would have loved to see a lot more Grand Inquisitor and less Reva, because I felt like Reva, her storyline was there, but I felt like, I don't know, I didn't feel the connection to her that I think I was supposed to feel.
I think a lot of people shared that, and I that feeling, and I think it's partially because once we realized she was gonna be a good guy, I felt like her character made more sense.
Yeah.
So maybe if I rewatch it, I'll feel different. But at first, I was like, I don't know. As an Inquisitor, it just didn't work for me. But as somebody that was trying to do good, it worked a little better.
The other thing I would have loved to see, like I said, I love the addition to this. Like, same reason why we'll talk about it in a second, is I love the idea this is Obi-Wan Kenobi show, but like the first 2 episodes or so was Princess Leia, and young Princess Leia. But what about a Grand Inquisitor show? Like an actual 6-episode series, or even an animated show of the Grand Inquisitors that's separate from the Rebels and separate from everything else, that was just about the Grand Inquisitors, because I felt like they tried. I love this show. No one's gonna get me wrong. I'm gonna get, this is a highly rated Star Wars show, highly rated show on TV.
Yep.
But the idea that they shoved young Princess Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader, and the Grand Inquisitors into 6 episodes, I felt like there were small pieces they could have like I really want a Hayden Christensen Darth Vader show. Like I really want one.
Oh yeah.
I really want a Grand Inquisitor show.
Well, it's now that you said like with the Inquisitors, I'm thinking like you could do that as a like much darker, about as dark as Disney gets, and actually have it be tracking down like famous Jedi from Star Wars lore and killing them.
Yes.
And then maybe at the end somebody stops it or whatever. But like that would be a great kind of really dark, gritty noir kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And so this, but also proves to me that we saw Star Wars, Star Wars Day and Star Wars Celebration came out recently, and there's no talk about a Darth Vader TV show or movie or anything like that. But a Hayden Christensen led Darth Vader movie, it could incorporate the Grand Inquisitors, could be in that. It could be a mixture between the 2 of them. Would be absolutely huge to me. Well, I think he never had I never really had a big problem with Hayden Christensen. We've talked about this in the prequels reviews, that it really was a directed based thing and a script based thing, that he didn't have a problem. I didn't have a problem with him. I had a problem with the way they wanted him to act.
Exactly.
But I think he, redeemed himself in this sense with correct directing, like you mentioned earlier, that a him led show where he's in the mask and James Earl Jones is doing the voice and he's mostly in the mask the entire time, I would watch every night.
Well, I'm honestly not sure, like that wouldn't be the best kind of, let me rephrase this. I was going to say redemption. It doesn't need it. The best way to tie up Obi-Wan Kenobi would be to end it with a Darth Vader movie and then have kind of Obi-Wan pull back out but move forward. That would be excellent. I would be, it's one movie, not a trilogy, just like the biggest, baddest Darth Vader movie ever made.
And they did basically tie in the prequels now to the TV show. So like in order to get a full grasp of the Star Wars complete universe, you kind of have to watch the prequels, this, and then the original trilogy. Is that they could do the opposite now, like do this season 2 of this, and then into a Darth Vader movie that prequels into the original trilogy. And like almost like at the end of the Darth Vader movie is the beginning of the prequel or the original trilogy. And that way they just like smoothly transitions to another one. You can call it Vader Down, because that was a really good comic book series, by the way.
That was a good comic
book
series. Or just
honestly, Vader would just be a sweet name for a movie. Just Vader.
Yep.
Done.
I think it would have to be just Vader.
Yeah. Well, I mean, or just Darth, because that's what Obi-Wan goes, Darth, and walks away. And I was like, oh, interesting. But yeah, I think that was, and I do, like I said, what I wrote in here about Princess Leia, and the reason I mentioned the whole, like they basically jammed a bunch of stuff in there, not in a bad way. I don't think, I just feel like I want more, and which is way a TV show should leave you. It should leave you wanting more, because that's how they get the second season and so on. But Princess Leia, it being an Obi-Wan show, and that basically the first couple episodes, you're like, oh my gosh, this is an Obi-Wan show, but it's really a Princess Leia show, which is awesome, because I loved the young woman, I forget her name, the young girl who played Princess Leia. I was
just looking that up.
I wanted to have it in here. I wrote young Leia. But because it's refreshing that a lot of child actors I see in some of these shows, I just can't get behind. I thought she was cute. I thought she was well acted. I thought she was very good. It made me think of a young Carrie Fisher, which is great.
I agree. It's Vivian Lyra Blair.
There you go. And I hope she gets more. I think if we do a season 2, she'll be in season 2. The question I have for you, Adam, is does in the original trilogy, when she says Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope on R2D2, does she know Obi-Wan Kenobi? Like, is she like, does she remember this childhood memories? Because like for some reason I thought going into that she didn't know him, that someone told her to seek out Obi-Wan Kenobi, but like she didn't know who Obi-Wan Kenobi was.
Yep.
And I could be wrong on that, but I felt like now she knows too much. Like she now knows, like she's like best friends with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I feel like the original trilogy was ambiguous enough that they can probably very reasonably write that, which is a kind of, you know, it's going to be weird if all of a sudden, like, she doesn't remember him anymore. Yes. That was a hell of an experience that they had together. I think it
is the world of Star Wars. There's some traumatic events that can happen that make you go, no, I don't remember who that person is.
Now, I think you're right. I think she almost certainly has not spoken or heard from Obi-Wan again by the time of the new movie. So she probably barely remembers him.
Yeah. But like still, it's just people that I know. I mean, again, I didn't get saved by this anybody when I was young, but there's people when I was young that I don't remember now either. So there is this aspect that maybe she's just, you know, blurry about who he was or what he needs. But so I guess my thought now that I'm retracting my statement about having her in season 2 is that I don't think she can't really be in season 2 because she can't be like living her entire life next to Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then
unless they do like a spin-off just Leia series.
Correct. But I'm just thinking to myself, maybe she has a flashback or maybe a couple of the first episode or 2 or something like that. But it doesn't make sense for her to be in the season 2 because of the fact that, again, she has to have this gap between when she knew Obi-Wan and when she's requesting his help. Yep. If she knows him all the time, she just call him on a cell phone and be like, hey, Obi-Wan, I need you. She doesn't have to send a droid out there for him. But yeah, not that cell phones were existing in the, you know, universe far away.
I mean, and one thing I think I really liked with Obi-Wan too, and I know this is contentious with fans, but I think this is trying to do, of course, there's money involved in fans, but I don't know. I think nobody ever really liked the thought, which was the thought for a long time, that Obi-Wan just kind of hid in the desert forever and did nothing while all of this horrible stuff was happening. So I think, of course, this is a redemption story. We all know that, but it is interesting because they could have not taken that track and done a, like, you know, why he was a recluse and why he was a hermit. So I think that's a big thing. Like you said, the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan was not the same as the one in the original trilogy.
I'll tell you this though, the beginning of the show, it made me understand struggles that he was dealing with mentally after the events of the prequels. Like it definitely made me think, okay, this guy has some PTSD from what happened in the prequels and that what he needs to get past and so on. So that's what makes you understand. I just need to live under the radar. Obviously he needs to live under the radar because execute Order 66 is, which was, tell you that was hearing that and seeing that was like, oh God, it's like, it made me get teared up. I'm like, oh my God. It's like, first of all, it's, throwbacks, but second of all, it's like they're executing tons of Jedi right now. But having to have him, he has to live under the ground. He has to live as not a Jedi. And that he doesn't want to use his force powers until he has to save a life. And,
which of course are badass, like all of us.
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Just seeing him again on TV and seeing him, it didn't look like he was that much different from when, and he looked 10 years later. He looked like he was 10 years after the first, even though it's been longer than that, right? It's been 20 years ish.
Yeah, that was the best inadvertent practical effect ever is that Ewan McGregor doesn't age.
No. It's that. And like I said, I don't think Hayden looked that much older too. I mean, he's not like, we only saw a little bit of him, but like there was this, I mean, if you see pictures of him, he's not that much older as well. So I do like the idea that they went back to that too. And again, this is episode 4, in my opinion, not episode 4 as in like, this is 3A, 3B, 3.5. You know how they do that, like in some movies where they make like the prequel movie at 3.5.
No, but you're right. It is. And that's what I said. I'm wondering now if you're kind of right that this is setting the groundwork for like an epic conclusion to the prequels.
Yes.
Because it's doing a great job so far. And I mean, before I have that note in here that I wrote when I was watching it, one thing is, and I don't know if you had the same experience, but the first couple episodes, it wasn't that they were shaky to me. They were fun.
Yes.
But the acting felt much looser, and Flea was playing that guy that chased Leia through the woods. But my thing is, like, I'm not sure that isn't really brilliant writing, where it started about as campy and like where you're as the prequels, where you're like, okay.
Yeah.
But by the end, it had fully transitioned into like what is Star Wars now. And so I'm not sure, maybe that wasn't just absolutely brilliant writing, that you were reminded how weird the prequels were.
Yes, exactly. Well, here's my question. So Camille Nanjiani's in this show as well. If anybody doesn't know that, Camille plays. He's one of my favorite comedic actors right now on TV. Yep. He was in Silicon Valley. He's a stand-up comedian. He has a podcast too. He has a podcast on the X-Files, actually called the X-Files Files. But when he was a Jedi, they're like, oh, let's go see this Jedi, and he's doing this, and he's like using the powers for his own financial gain. And I'm like, what is going on? If they really made him a Jedi, I'm gonna be so mad right now. And then come to find out he was just scamming people and using remotes and things like that was freaking hilarious. But to me, that was a good use of Camille Nanjiani. Every time I see Flea in a movie now, I go, why? Who in the right mind out there? It's not like Flea, the person, is drawing in people to see the show. It's like when he was in Back to the Future, I was like, why? It's not like, I guess at the time maybe Flea was more popular back when Back to the Future was coming out than this, but like Flea just to me was like, it threw me off. It threw me off kind of like in The Mandalorian that Bill Burr threw me off on. Like it just, Bill Burr being in The Mandalorian was like, why do you have this person here? But here's
why I think you're right. But Camille though is brilliant in the way that I was just saying, in that, because he's episode 1, I think maybe 2, but like, the second you hear him, you're like, oh no, this is this is so goofy. This is not the right character actor, because that's what the prequels often felt like.
Yes.
So seeing them actually transition him into a well-casted character, again, I think is them kind of saying, we know the problems.
Yes.
We're fixing it right now.
Yeah. And it's funny because Camille actually was a stormtrooper in the sequel trilogies. In one of the trilogy, they started throwing people randomly in things and random in suits. Yeah. Camille Nanjiani was one of the people in a suit, which is kind of funny. So now he's actually technically played 2 characters in the Star Wars universe.
That's funny. That's awesome.
But yeah, it's awesome. And I think probably dream come true as someone who now has been in the Eternals, that he's now been on a show like Silicon Valley, and now he's been on a Star Wars TV show. Like, he must be living his best life right now.
Oh, I mean, he's definitely getting his years now where he's making his money. And now after, a while of this, he can do whatever he wants to.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I don't know. I understand. So I have as an overall thing, I don't want to get too far into that yet because we're not fully done yet, but the first 2 episodes I thought were really good, well done. Like, and honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why the way that they're set up, you can finish episode 1 and you're like, I know why they released 2 episodes today, because you kind of need to watch episode 2 to kind of get
absolutely.
And then episode 6 was amazing. I think 1 and 2 and 6 were like the best.
Yep.
3, 4, and 5 to me, which is kind of funny because the best Star Wars movies out there are 4, 5, and 6.
Yep.
So having 4 and 5 of something, and in Disney Plus, episode 4 for the majority of shows have been the best episode. There was something about that middle part with the Reva part and this part where there just was like, again, when I mentioned if it could make it into a movie, I felt like if you took episodes 1 and 2 and some of 3 and 4 and 5, and then episode 6 and then smushed it into one, you could have made an unbelievable movie called Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I agree. And I think you're right. Because I think so to episode 5, it was when I was like, okay, I see what's getting ready to happen.
Yes.
But even episode 5 was not as, I have random notes. Wasn't episode 5 that was when they went underwater on Mustafar?
Yes.
And stuff like that, where I was like, I know it's space drama, so who cares? But damn, that base was really poorly designed.
Yes.
I mean, I could have swam down there and jumped up that hole and walked around. Like, I was like, what is happening? I also think it's funny though, because Obi-Wan now, that's what he always does, is sneaks into bases.
Yes. He's a Ghost Recon of
he absolutely is.
But what I wrote in my notes is that the funny thing about Star Wars is that it's such a humongous fan base that it can, in a sense, because it can get ridiculed for it, but it can struggle at moments and still superly succeed because of its Star Wars. And I felt like episodes 3 and 4, that if it was not a Star Wars based show, they might have not actually had the numbers for 5 and 6 episodes, because some people might have been like, I've lost me. See you later. I want more Obi-Wan, Darth Vader shit. But because it's Star Wars, you're like, and it's only 6. That's the other thing, is it's only 6 episodes. So you may say to yourself, I'm just going to watch this. I always said that with The Walking Dead's first season is 6 episodes. Breaking Bad, I believe the first episode, season 6 episodes. So any of these shows that have like these small first seasons, I'm like, watch the entire first season. It's gonna make sense. You're gonna like it.
Yep.
Same thing with this, like just watch the entire thing. And I feel like it was amazing. And people were like, oh my God, I got to watch the next episode. And then it was like, and then bam, I can't wait for second season. And so I think they did a great job overall. I just felt like there was a moment in the middle there where it was kind of slow and kind of like.
I agree. And I think a point you just made, which is I maybe becoming a theme on our podcast now, but the reason I feel like, where I'm not always, being negative with other franchises, but the reason Star Wars works and Disney works when it doesn't have the best momentum or the best like plot, details or loopholes or whatever, is because it's fun.
Yes.
And the fun, and I know I'm talking about DC and I'm going to make people angry again, but it's like the fun is what carries me through, because when I start seeing plot holes and you're depressing me, like then I'm just kind of, but like everything that they do, it can be, Obi-Wan was not a light show, like at all. It was heavy stuff. But it was always something fun happening.
Yes. So there's where I talk about the Batman, where there was enough bad things that made the movie bad to me. Not bad, but like it wasn't a good movie to me because there was enough the Batman negative things. And that was also in my mind because the Dark Knight series was so amazing that you can't outweigh the good. The good didn't outweigh the bad because there was a bunch of good things in the Batman movie. This is the opposite of that. There were some plot hole. There were some funky, weird things that happened in the show, but there were so many good things that this is going to get a high rating for me because the goods far outweighed the bads.
Right.
And, to the point where like when I first saw Darth Vader again, I was like, this is the most amazing show ever. Because it was just like, I cannot believe I see it. And then I heard James Earl Jordan's voice. I was like, oh my God. And then the battles with lightsabers, seeing the lightsaber battles again and seeing all of that over again was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so the small things, the chase of Leia, which is one of the big talk about on the internet, that
it's huge.
No one can catch Leia, young Leia. It reminded me a lot of what I write in my notes. The fact that they can outrun the guards easily reminds me of the fact that stormtroopers' aim sucks.
Yes.
So like there's this weird thing. The guards suck at catching Leia as well as the stormtroopers can't shoot anybody.
But here, and the thing too, is what I still think it's actually just really good writing that like, the Flea thing is just goofy. I don't like that it's Flea. I don't like that he's clearly this idiot that like can elude everybody. None of that makes sense. But if you'll remember the prequels, you and I were talking about once they drilled the hole in the glass, why'd they drop poison worms in it? Why didn't you just shoot her? Just shoot her in the face. Like it's the Batman rule. It's just shoot him in the face. Like, so my point is like coming in later, which is what a lot of critics are doing now and saying like, Star Wars needs to not have loopholes. Star Wars is a loophole. Everything about it is a giant loophole. That's why it works, because you can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want because it's in space. It's in you're far, far away, which is somehow way in the past, but also in the future. Like that's been since the beginning. They have technology that we don't have now, but don't have the technology that we do have now, which is the weirdest thing. Like we have like cotton-based, like easily fitting t-shirts, and they're still wearing like cloaks and like robes. Like so but they also have the technology to like use droids and sentient like AI based droids that can talk to you and learn, but yet so it's far, far away in a galaxy far, far away, yet in the future, but yet in the past. And then we're also critiquing how they can't do this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, okay, it's Star Wars.
Well, do we remember the Ewoks again? Like, we can do whatever we want. That was one of like, and people now, our generation love them. People at the time hated the Ewoks because what a weird thing, but who cares? It's outer space.
Have you seen Fanboys yet? The movie. So it's on, so check it out. Log into the Plex thing. It's on there. I watched it last week. I think last Monday I watched it. And there's a part in there where they're at, because it's the whole movie's about them going to Skywalker Ranch to watch to get in there, just to break in. And they want to watch the episode 1 before it goes to the theaters. Like the whole thing. So they get to Star Wars Ranch at one point, and they're getting caught by the guards, and they're picking up things in George Lucas's office that they're like, I'll break this. And it's like a TIE fighter, miniature that they use for special effects and so on and so forth. And someone picks up an Ewok suit, and everybody goes, Yeah.
Oh no.
like we don't care. You can burn that. I don't give a crap what you do with that thing. And I thought it was the same thing if someone picked up a Jar Jar Binks thing, but because this was pre episode 1, it wouldn't have made any jokes. But it was kind of funny how if someone picked up a Jar Jar Binks suit now, which obviously it's all special effects, most of it, but like people would be like, nah, we don't care. You can steal that. Go ahead, do what you want with it. But it's the funny thing about Star Wars, I mentioned before, is there's things that they can get away with because it's Star Wars. And that's okay. Because I feel like the stuff that Marvel gets away with, in my opinion, because it's the MCU. So like I treat Venom and I treat Morbius differently than I treat Thor and Avengers, because they are not made in the same quote unquote universe. Star Wars gets away with a lot of things because it's Star Wars, but I'm absolutely okay with that because they have the right to do that. They've earned the right to do that. And I think that's something to be said. But if this wasn't based in the Star Wars universe, this is just a space-based TV show, I still think it would be an amazing show. But,
and I've said it before and I'll say it to put it in the record, but mark my words, Jar Jar Binks is going to come back. And I promise you, it will be one of the biggest Star Wars series by viewership that has ever happened. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
We talked about the bar, like the comedy part of it too, but I would also love Sith Jar Jar Binks.
Oh my God, more than anything. Like
he finally gets tired of being picked on.
So do it as a comedy though. Like do it where like some guy's conning him and it's not even a Sith and he thinks he's like, Darth Jar Jar and he's not. But like, I'm telling you, man, it'll be the biggest series. It'll be right up there with Obi-Wan.
He'll have like sais that are lightsabers and people are like, what are you, nunchucks that are lightsabers or something weird?
It would be nunchucks because that's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yes. And he'd phase himself like he did on the pod racer. He had like tongue sticking out.
Oh man, it'd be so good. It'd be so good.
Yes. So I as a whole, 6 episodes was great. Also, though, did you see the thing online where people were like, they're going the wrong direction? That the Mandalorian was like 9 episodes, and then Book of Boba Fett was 8 episodes. Or it was 8 episodes, 7 episodes. This was 6 episodes. Like you're going the wrong direction. We're getting less episodes for each Star Wars series we get. However, I do think Andor is at least 10. So we're moving, and they've already got renewed for a 2nd season in Andor. So we're looking forward to that.
And so far, I mean, I think Obi-Wan was a really good length. I wouldn't have wanted, like you said, I either want a movie or like, or let's really do it. So 6 was good. I would have taken 4, honestly.
So the last notes I have here actually on this thing was the thing we talked about. You just mentioned about drilling a hole. Why didn't you just shoot him? Why doesn't Obi-Wan Kenobi just kill Darth Vader? Then we wouldn't even have a problem. We wouldn't have the original trilogy because he could have just killed him right there. He was weak. He probably could have killed him. And he walks away and says, you're no longer my friend or something like that. And says, okay, see you later, Darth. And walks away, and then Darth Vader goes on to kill many, many, many more people.
Well, my thinking, and this is all speculative, is it's because he wants to work with Qui-Gon to bring Anakin back somehow.
Okay.
And I think that's because this is getting into that whole like looking for other ways to use the Force, and Qui-Gon says like we've got a long way to go still. Or something like I have a feeling that's where he's going to go work on now is can I save Anakin? But you're right though. It's like this unhealthy obsession with a really horrible person.
Yeah. I can just picture like there's so many times where someone was just, you just would have killed this guy. Then when but again, we have to think about this is movies we talk about. This is TV shows we talk about that if you kill Darth Vader in this show, the original trilogy doesn't exist because the whole original trilogy is about Darth Vader. So like there's no reason to have original trilogy without with you kill him here. So you kind of need him to survive. I also find it funny that in the sequel trilogy doesn't what's his face Ben Skywalker, right? No,
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren. Isn't his mask get all smashed into? It's kind of a homage to that too, and all that stuff. So there's a bunch of fun things. But again, a plot hole that it probably would have been very easy for Obi-Wan Kenobi just to kill Darth Vader then, and the Death Stars never probably would have been created. All that stuff would have happened.
I had this question while I was watching. This is a good one to throw out for you too, because I don't know. But, whether we look at the bad acting or it was written that way, and Hayden Christensen is weird. Like even not Hayden Christensen, Darth Vader is weird. Like even if we get to the modern iteration, like what a weird angry guy. And it's canon though that he was conceived without a father spontaneously too. So I feel like that hasn't been explored, but like, I mean, that has to somehow play into making him weird because he just spontaneously appeared. So where did that come from? So like, I just feel like maybe that's something they could explore too with moving forward.
Robes, longer hair. It's Jesus. Holy crap.
There you go.
He's Jesus.
Dark Jesus.
It would be kind
of dark
funny.
Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. Right. No, but yeah, it's a good point that we don't know who his dad is in a sense. So it also, like, I think we might get to that point because I feel like at some point, Star Wars is going to go original prequels. So like the High Republic, they're going to go farther back with some of this stuff. So there may be a time, might not be in our lifetime, but there may be a time where they do catch up with the idea that you can create a character, you create someone who is Anakin Skywalker's dad, but then there's a reason why you don't see him anymore. Maybe he died or
I just, that's always been such a big question with Star Wars nerds. And I feel like now with Obi-Wan, it's like a huge question because it's getting to the heart of who Darth Vader is. So I don't know. I don't have any answers for that, but
me either. But what I will say is that the show overall was amazing to me. You know, Adam and I are going to start doing some actual ratings of the show. I would definitely think this is probably an 8 to me because it's not perfect, but I think 7 or below is just too low for this show. But they did an unbelievable job creating a show with characters that we know what happens to them. And that's the biggest thing I think some people don't understand with the show if they're just turning it on, watching the show for like the first time. They're not huge Star Wars fans. Is we all know what happens to every single one of these characters, minus the new people like the Inquisitors. We don't really like they're not in the big films and they're not in the big shows.
Exactly.
So we do know though that Darth Vader eventually dies. You do know that Obi-Wan Kenobi eventually dies. You do know that Leia eventually, there's all these things you do know what happens to them. You see the shots of Luke Skywalker in this. You're like, okay, you do know he becomes the Luke Skywalker we all know. And they did an unbelievable job telling the story and giving us speculation and giving us the unknown for the rest of the season, knowing that they, you know, the fear that someone might die, even though you know they don't die because they're in the future stuff.
And I feel like a lot, they go for, instead of trying to shock us with like new twists all the time, they really they try to respect the source material and fill it in. Like you said, I feel like we all know that like if Obi-Wan and Darth could fight again, they were going to. So this isn't like a shock, but to see it changes everything, kind of moving into the original trilogy.
So, I mean, again, I was so excited to watch this. There was that time in the middle, like I mentioned, where it was like when Wednesday came about, I don't think I watched it till Thursday because I wasn't like, holy crap, I got to watch, which was like The Mandalorian, the very first season of The Mandalorian. I was like, the second I clocked out of work, I wanted to be home watching it on the TV. Whereas the episodes 3 and 4 and 5, or maybe not 5, but 3 and 4 for sure, were more like, I'll watch at some point. We'll get to it. It's fine. When I got to the end of 5, I was like, I need to see 6. And then now I watched 6 and I'm like, oh my God, when's the next season? No announcement yet for season 2 yet, but they have to believe there's got to be.
If the whole show had kept that pace, like it would be like a 9.5. I mean, it would be one of the better Star Wars things made. But like you said, we got a glimpse of in episode 6, especially like what they could do with that prequel-ish storyline. And
I tell you right now, I am a huge Marvel fan. I am a huge pop culture fan and so on. I will say right now, unequivocally, that Darth Vader is the best villain. Just looks, what he can do, who he is, the story behind him, the whole Luke Skywalker connection. I just think Darth Vader is when you think of Star Wars, as much as the Luke Skywalker out there and R2-D2 and all those things, Star Wars is Darth Vader, in my opinion. Like Star Wars logo could just be Darth Vader's helmet and it would be great. And so seeing him in this show, and seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi's connection back to the person he trained was huge to me. So
I agree with you. I mean, there's nothing more iconic than
yes.
I mean, I don't have to say anything else. Like
he needs an inhaler. He has a problem breathing. But yeah, so I think so. Like I said, high, 8.5, right around there.
I agree 100%. I'd say 8.5 probably on my end.
So it's definitely a show that is gonna live in the lore of, I mean, to me, if we're doing rankings of the orders, Mandalorian season 1 is still the best live action TV show for Star Wars that's been on Disney Plus. I think this is right behind it. I think season 2 of Mandalorian is, it's good, but it's not nearly as good as this. And then Book of Boba Fett still, it was a great show. Love seeing Boba Fett on there. I just think there was a lot more to be desired in
Book of Boba Fett was excellent, but it didn't need to be Book of Boba Fett. It could have been another Mandalorian season. I mean,
and this shows me, like I said, Book of Boba Fett was like the next live action show, so I was like, okay, I was in the whole like my it's amazing about it. Adrenaline was going. This was like, okay, this is what another show could be, and gives me hope for Andor, because Andor could be just as good as this. Because one of my favorite Star Wars movies of all time is Rogue One. So like, if this is anything, the next show is anything like Rogue One, I'm gonna be super excited for that too. So
I agree. Now, my final thought on it was, I'll say is, the thing I loved the most was I really, in my core, thought they were gonna lean into the like broken Obi-Wan storyline, and the fact that he ended up just roundly like kicking Darth Vader's butt, I thought was just like such an excellent choice. And I thought, so I don't know, that was kind of my final thought on the movie, was seeing the strong Obi-Wan back, like made my month. Like, I love not thinking of Obi-Wan as an old man in a cave.
Yes. And it shows how strong Darth Vader is. Which shows how strong Obi-Wan is. So that makes sense.
When he's holding that porthole in that's like 300 feet underwater, I was like, oh, that's foreshadowing. And pulling whole ships and things like that with, of course, all of that stuff. It's like I said, I could watch this over again and just see all those things. Forget the storyline, just watching all those small things that you see that makes you love the Star Wars films and TV shows is huge to me. We did review, you and I reviewed episodes 1, 2, and 3. We did.
We had a special guest, Gibran Graham, who did Solo with us. And so we have those 4 reviews are up on our podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple, all those things, and our website, capesandtights.com. We'll also be doing Rogue One this summer. We'll be doing Andor at the end of the Andor season. We're going to have an article on our site soon at some point. We're going to discuss the cheat sheet to the Clone Wars animated show. Time. And then honestly, we'll probably put something up on the website around the time that Bad Batch season 2 comes out, just talking about season 1, because season 1 was pretty good in that series as well. It has Execute Order 66 in that as well. So that happens right around the same timeline as this.
A little guide would be fun. I'll try to do a similar thing with the video games, which is a whole other story. They're starting to incorporate those into the storyline, which is amazing. So
go to capesandtights.com to learn more about that.
Check it out.
Kestis is going to have his own show, hopefully, out there with the voice, which I love also, is the fact that the voice actor is being rumored to be cast as the actor in it.
I love that.
And so I read it. I read the rumor on the internet, and I was like, oh, cool. I'm thinking Clone Wars style animation, Bad Batch style animation. And then I read live action, and I'm like, oh, that's even cooler to me, because I think that's awesome to see that person come over. And they probably won't have all the voice actors who do the movie in there, but like having the main character.
We have had the droid from the video game, so we're getting there.
We're getting there. So check that out. So that's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order video game, rumored to have a TV show coming out at some point with Cal Kestis, who is the main character in that. Who's honestly, it's hugely popular to most people who are big Star Wars fans and have it be a video game. It's the same thing. I just wrote an article about the reviewing of the book 1 of Clementine, which is a graphic novel by Tilly Walden. It's in the sorry, get this lighting here. It's in the Walking Dead universe.
Oh, nice.
But this Clementine actually's first appearance is in the Telltale series of games.
I was getting ready to say, I loved those.
And so this is her expanding off of season 4 of the Telltale Skybound series that now have her own book. Book 2 will come out next year, and book 3 will come out in 2024. So it's like 22, 23, and 24, which is really cool. So seeing that video games are being incorporated into the universes, and because this is so popular and the game was so popular, I have to believe that AMC is working on some sort of spin-off TV show for The Walking Dead featured around Clementine and the stories that happened in that book as well, which is pretty cool. So there's no comics. It's just literally a graphic novel, which I like too. I just finished it last week or over the weekend and wrote a little review about it's The Walking Dead that we need again. But we have a lot more content now coming to capesandtights.com, not just podcast related things. We'll have maybe some video only related things. We'll have articles, reviews, guest posts, Shane Grant, Our friend just reviewed The Black Phone
Yeah,
on there as well.
that's
So
excellent.
excited about some horror stuff. Taylor and I are going to New York City in August. They just announced the Living with the Walking Dead exhibit at the Museum of Moving Images down there, which is a bunch of stuff from the Walking Dead show.
Oh, that's awesome.
Props, special effects things, clothing, all that stuff.
Yeah, totally.
From the TV show, as well as some of the stuff from the comic book. So we'll be doing that, and I'll write something up after that as well.
Absolutely.
So we're excited for all that stuff. So capesandtights.com is the home for all of that. But if you want more audio podcasts, stuff like that, Spotify, Apple, all those things, you can find us on social media as well.
Absolutely.
Capes and Tights. So yeah, that's great. I think we're done with this episode. What do you think?
I think may the force be with you.
And with you, Adam.